I am genuinely proud to present and introduce you to my new friend, Alysia Angel. A class of 211. Sorry, Alysia. A class of 2011 Lambda Fellow in Fiction.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Just give me a sec.
Once the woos are over. I'm going to be reading from my novel in progress. It's called Flinch. Chapter 1. For argument's sake. I worked at the auto shop up the street for 2 years. No one asked me about myself, and I could walk the mile there and back easily. I walked the long way most days, down alleys I liked. There were 2 dogs that I enjoyed watching as they barked metallic, dusty-throated warnings to each other. The black mastiff had a way about it that made me think of you. It would stalk the fence when I came near, sniffing the air silently. Its eyes would follow me all the way from the end of the alley until it was right up against his fence. He would saunter over until he was right near me and walk alongside me till I was past. He would hold his barks until I was long down the alley, and then the taunting would start. The low baying sound was intentional and sounded for the entire world like a human laugh. The mastiff wanted nothing more than to sink his massive teeth into my thigh. Alley game was a fun game we played. I was always 1 minute exactly late to work. I figured out the formula to make my boss hate me, but not know why. Francis was a well-dressed man for a car garage. Suit always outdated, but pressed neatly. His ties were too garish, his thinning hair oiled down too slick, and his polyester pants were too short. He always looked as though someone had spent 3 hours pressing his whole getup down to his socks. One would always slide down his skinny legs, showcasing his sallow flesh. That jaundiced calf would find me while working under a car. That calf was angry about my skin of the teeth lateness. The puckering skin like tiny frowns. That calf would stand there next to the car for as long as it wanted to. My hands worked on while my mouth smirked under the bandana I always wore. I followed Francis home first. He lived clear across town with his decrepit mother, and yet he preferred to walk in his shiny shoes the 3 miles it took to get home. It was clear after my visit that his long walk home was to avoid being home at all. Once he arrived on his stoop, his shoulders immediately drooped, and his head hung like the bottom of a rusty town square bell. I watched all night from the street, lounging in a bush and eating sandwiches. I could hear his mother screaming obscenities over the television. It was clear that golden years to her meant to be able to use the word fuck in as many combinations as possible. She came out of the house once while I was there. She pulled on her oversized white underwear, squatted primly, and defecated right into France's left loafer. My admiration for her was unparalleled. What a woman. Francis paid me each week in cash. He carefully peeled off 20s and placed them in a neat stack in the palm of my hand. His pinky left nail was always curiously much longer than the rest of the fingers on his hand. If any part of his hand grazed mine, he would flinch, as if touching me burned him somehow. He would smile at me, though. His mouth had to force the 2 sides up and away from his clenched lips. Francis was like a reformed rabbit wearing a wolf suit. No matter how much he fluffed the fur, and no matter how much he filed his teeth down, Francis was always a scared bunny.